What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the NFL Weekly, Week 14 to be exact, as we are in the stretch run of the NFL season, if you can believe it. Wherever you are, I'm sure it's starting to cool off. I know here in Southern California, it's dropped below 65, so we all get our winter gear on. But when I say we with me, I mean my partners in crime in this endeavor. Coach Brandon Lupian will be the first one I'll introduce. You can find Coach at Portland76er on Twitter. Coach, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing quite well. I'm just glad to be back on, like I was alluding to earlier with you. Just end of the semester for myself, end of the semester for my son, job changes, priorities just kind of kick in. And then, I don't even know what week we are. Yeah. So,
well,
like
I will say this to all of our listeners. If you do want Coach to be on every week, feel free to give me a call. If you fund this podcast and you pay all three of us $50,000 a year, I guarantee you we will be here every single week. But until then, you will have to deal with some of life's issues. In that case, with me as well is going to be Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Doing real well, adjusting to the temperature change, getting ready to go into hibernation or something like that. But Raiders are on a 3-game streak, and what more can I ask for?
Yeah, they will be playing here in about an hour and a half. They are the Thursday night game. Coach's Saints are on a bye, so the spotlight is all on me. I'm just kidding. But
the byes ruined our streak.
Yeah, we had a good
not like your
here.
guys' streak, but the byes ruined our streak, our losing streak. So
yeah, hopefully I'll win this weekend. In the bye, everyone comes out healthy and all in one piece. But it is, of course, week 14. But before we go into week 14, let's take a look back at week 13. I'm going to start with Raider Jim, because I know he was very excited this past Sunday. The Raiders, I don't know if they get themselves back into the playoff picture, but they're definitely, like Raider Jim said, 3-game winning streak. They've somewhat righted the ship. It doesn't look like it's going down as quickly as we expected. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Raiders, big win over rival Chargers.
It's guarded optimism for me. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got a freeze on my end, so excuse me if I start stepping over you. I got a side. Guarded optimism. What can you say? It took them this long to get things rolling and figure out what's happening. And what I is it's going to be one of those situations where we get into the last 3 weeks of the season and the organization is going to dangle that front of the Raider Nation that says wait till next year. That has been the song, and that has been what they've been reading out of the book for the last 20 years now. And next year can't come around soon enough for me and for all my members of the Raider Nation. So we'll see how well they do. Are they a playoff picture? I don't think so. It would take a complete dismantling of everything around them. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's it's difficult. Like I've always said, it's tough to be in that what I call NFL purgatory. 8 and 9, 9 and 8, just almost making the playoffs, but also not getting a top 10 pick. So we'll see how that goes down the stretch. But I think for the Raiders, and obviously Josh McDaniel, I think for him to maybe feel a little better. I feel like now I don't know about guaranteed for next year, but I don't think it's as cut and dry. If they would have gone 2 and 15 or 3 and 14, he probably would have gotten the axe. So I think he's done somewhat of enough to get that rolling. But Coach, another tough week for the Saints, but got the bye week. What were your thoughts? Not just this week, but also really how the season's gone. We kind of did a little bit of an umbrella on our teams last week. I know you weren't here, unfortunately, but what are your thoughts? Obviously not a fantastic season for the Saints, but thoughts so far on this season?
No, not a fantastic season by any means of the imagination. I think as the spotlight turned to Monday Night Football, I think it was an accumulation of our entire season, whether there was a lack of preparation by our coaching staff in regards to penalties. I think we've led the league in penalties all season, and it kind of shows as far as our injury concerns have gone, and our lack of preparation, especially with the O-line, which has typically been a strength of ours the last couple of seasons. And then a lack of preparation or game time focus and awareness when you step out of bounds with 1 yard to get the first down and extend a drive, probably the game-ending drive, and you don't do it. But then the very next play, it's kind of like what we've seen all season long, as far as probably not the aggressive or justifying game call or play call, going to a quick slant versus, you know what, just tightening up the laces and grinding out for that less than 1 yard to get a first down and continuing the clock. So there's been a lot of time mismanagement. There's been a lack of preparation. There's just been a lack of focus, game day awareness, and it's continued on to this past week, going into the bye and improving your draft status for the first round.
Yeah, that's a great segue into the first thing I want to remind everyone. Unfortunately for the Saints, but very good for my Eagles at the moment, the Eagles being best team in football record-wise. They're also holding on to the number 5 overall pick thanks to those Saints. And obviously last week, the Eagles surprised even myself. And I think I took the Titans plus, I think it was +5 or whatever it was. And I believe Raider Jim did as well. So surprised both of us by going out and, taking care of business, 35-10, holding Derrick Henry to 33 yards rushing, I believe is what it was. But I don't really want to focus on that. And this is mainly me going back because I forgot to talk about this last week. And it kind of helps because we saw some news that I don't think surprised a whole lot of us, but the Washington football team / Commanders / the old name, whatever you want to call them, they got hit with, I believe it was the Supreme Court pretty much ruling in favor of the employees, saying that Dan Snyder not only had a toxic workplace environment, but it didn't do anything to stop it. And secondly, on top of that, probably not as serious, but it's very important to me. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had a quote unquote, a Sean Taylor statue reveal. And look, folks, I don't even know what you want to call that. If you go into your local sports authority, you will see the quote unquote Sean Memorial statue if you grab the right jersey. It was an absolute disgrace for them to put a mismatch helmet, jersey, pants, and cleats on a wire frame of a human being. I thought it was an absolute joke for the I almost did it for the Commanders. But it also kind of shows where this franchise is off of the field. I think on the field, they have a lot to feel good about. Behind the scenes, there is a lot of turmoil, but I did forget to bring that up last week, and we're not going to be talking about the Commanders. So I just wanted to sneak that in. Sean Taylor was one of my favorite players of all time. I think most of us know the story. And it just seems like Washington, every single time they try to memorialize this guy, something goes terribly wrong. So I just wanted to fit that in, but it is time to look ahead to week.
I'd like to bring up something before we get into the week's picks. I wanted to mention or get everybody's opinion. What do you think about these injuries that keep happening that are not your average injuries? The Matthew Stafford's contusion. To even consider coming back and playing, I'm sure he will, but there's the Trevor Lawrence situation where they really don't know what his lower body injury is. But if you look at the heap he was in when he went down last week, look at what happened to Tago Vailoa a few weeks back, and now he's got a bad ankle. And of course, it's the coach that's stepping up saying, "Oh, that's just an ankle injury. It's not a big deal." Garoppolo, his foot injury, I know what that foot injury is, I believe, if I read it correctly. And it's one of the doctor tell me that is one of the few places that A, they have to operate to make it better, and B, odds are they're not going to make it 100% better because it's most intricate parts of the foot the foot's intricate as it is, but that particular spot with the tendons and everything, it just seems like time we get to the playoff time for the NFL, there's going to be a lot of beat up and battered players out there. How great this is going to reduce life expectancy in the NFL?
Coach, I'll give you the honors. Tackle that one first.
As far as a lot of these injuries goes, not only in the NFL, but you see it across the NBA, you see it across MLB, where they're buying service time or they're extending service time in contractual obligations. And this is no Kawhi Leonard rest day kind of thing. This is a Corey Spangenberg quad injury circa 2019. I got a quad injury, and they're paying him to sit out. They're like this contusion for Matthew Stafford. They're paying him to sit out. There's a lot of that going on. It happens in all these leagues, probably except in the NHL. But if they could find, this guy's tooth root infection, got to keep him out, they will. So I think it's more or less just putting these guys to sit out without having to get fined by the league. They have to name an injury, whatever it is. As you see, with the more syllables that this injury has, the more serious it sounds, when a lot of it is just baloney. It's just kind of like, what are the Rams right now? They're not very good. Let's get a look at these other guys, and let's make sure that he won't play the rest of the season. Let's just make sure that we're paying his contract. His life expectancy isn't in jeopardy, at least for this season. But let's just try to add to the syllable amount to each injury, and that's where we're at. But there's a lot to say. I mean, with all this CTE going on, and it's a real thing. I think clubs are starting to try and protect themselves as much as they can, in addition to extending the life of the contract. I don't know who it was. I think it was Jalen Rose was on a podcast talking about NBA injuries, and it's like, no, John Wall's injury last year could have came back and played. They just extended the life of his contract by minimalizing his playing time. So, and then they release him at the end of the year. He's a Clipper now. So there's a lot of that going on, and I think teams are just hiding ways to protect themselves from these leagues as far as getting fined or being held liable for certain things. So that's my take. It's just a little rant. It's just kind of a trend that's been going on, and there really is no true answer, it seems, or we would know.
Yeah, it's so kind of odd because I do agree with you. I think in the Stafford situation, spinal contusion, spinal anything, I think definitely should raise some alarm bells, because unfortunately, I mean, if it goes badly, I'm not a doctor, but that is where the paralysis is, obviously heightened in those areas. And, you don't want anyone to have to go through life further than that. But kind of opposite of what the Raiders had. I mean, obviously the Raiders started slowly and they've won 3 in a row. I think the Rams look at this and go, you know what, we've lost, I think they've only won 3 games. I think they're 3-9, 3-8, something like that. They might just be in full tank mode. However, it is a little odd because they technically don't have that pick. That pick, their first round pick, is going to be the Lions because it came in that Stafford deal. So I would normally say, it's like you said, a very nuanced way of a tanking. But at the same time, there isn't a positive to tanking other than the people in Detroit. And obviously they just got Baker Mayfield off waivers. I don't expect him to start tonight. Don't quote me on that. I haven't paid too much attention. I would be very surprised. He's only been on the team for 2 days. Very hard for a quarterback to learn the playbook. I think next Sunday, he'll probably get his first chance. If he beats out John Wolford, I'll throw that if out there. But I think for teams, you brought up a good point in terms of just kind of cover their bases, cover CYA. I remember Belichick, pretty much everybody was on the injury report and kind of in his heyday, to the point where, someone sneezed in the meeting on Monday. Let's put him down as questionable with an illness, just to kind of make sure that, if something does happen and they can't play, no one's asking questions. But I do believe we are also seeing a bit of a blowback from the Tua situation, because I think we all were in agreement he probably shouldn't have played that Thursday night, and he did, and then we saw what happened. So I do think teams maybe are erring on the side of caution when they can, and just to, kind of another way to, cover your own behind. But it is going to be interesting, as Raider Jim said, heading into the playoffs, because that's when you really want to see the best players play. But I do know for Jimmy G, I don't know how credible this report was, but there's some talk that he's not going to get surgery right away, and he's hoping to be back for the divisional/conference championship round. Best of luck to you. If I was Jimmy G, I don't know if I would be doing that. We talked about the longevity of your career. I think you do take some off of that if you come back for one game, essentially, and could possibly hurt yourself more. But let us dive into week 14. As we look ahead to this Sunday's matchup, we will start with the NFC East matchup we have going on. My Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants. The Eagles sit minus 300 on the money line, plus 240 for the Giants. Currently, the Eagles, it was 6.5. It has moved up slightly. The Eagles are now 7-point favorites. The over-under here sits at 44.5. After last week, I really do feel that the Eagles have proven they can cover not big spreads, but sizable spreads against good teams. Obviously, I think Tennessee is a better team than the Giants. No disrespect to the Giants, but I just think there's more talent. There's better situations there. The game, obviously, being in New York is going to complicate things. But I still like the Eagles here. However, I kind of told myself when I wrote these notes out earlier today before I looked at the new line, I said 6.5 is my hard stop. I don't like the Eagles to cover a full touchdown. I think 6.5 is a little safer. However, I feel a little more confident about the under here. I just think the Giants, they haven't really scored a whole lot this year. Their highest output has been 24 points. I think they struggle to get there with against a good Eagles defense. So we'll see how that goes. But I am going to take, for the moment, I'll probably buy myself down 0.5 point and take the Eagles minus 6.5, or try and find somewhere to find them 6.5. But I am very, very confident of the under 44.5. But Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts as we have the Eagles heading to the Meadowlands to take on the Giants as 7-point favorites?
Some of the things that these guys have been doing all season long, I'm not really surprised by now. They're just playing gosh darn lights out football. I think we've all been surprised with what the Giants have done so far. And I don't know if this is that week where you could say, oh, it's not a fluke. Brian Dable really has these guys. Well, he's definitely got them on another level than last season. Obviously, record speaks for itself. Some of the things that Daniel Jones been able to do is marked improvement. So, I really can't go against your Eagles after the thrashing they gave the Titans. It doesn't matter that it's in the Meadowlands. I think, logistically, there's fans close enough to make an impact.
Yeah.
So I like the given numbers that are up, and go Eagles.
There you go. I believe outside of a trip to Pittsburgh, this is the shortest trip for the Eagles. Very, not, I don't want to say close, but it's about a 4 or 5 hour drive from Philadelphia to New York. So
I've made that drive.
yeah,
I've made that drive a couple of times back and forth. So, I don't see where there's a true home field advantage. Of course, there's going to be a home field advantage, but like not overwhelming by any means of the of a home field advantage. So,
agreed.
and again, like what the Eagles have been doing, at some point I was like, that's a really gosh darn good team. They're doing really gosh darn good team things, and that surprise factor isn't there like it is for what the Giants have been doing. So I kind of expect business as usual. It's a NFC East conference game. To my knowledge, nothing's been clinched, but will be soon. So there really shouldn't be any kind of lackluster performance or lack of focus, because I think, not until you're standing on that podium, the season's done, and this isn't the kind of in conference game, that you take a break on. There shouldn't be a conference game you take a break on. So I like the numbers. I really like what the Giants have done this season, but I just don't think it's enough for this Philly team.
Yeah, it's a big ask, and you're right. The home field advantage, maybe it's home bed advantage or just home advantage of those Giants being home, or at least the ones that, do have homes in New York. You at least able to wake up in your own bed, or at least your own condo, whatever you want to call it. So maybe some comfortability there. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? We have the Philadelphia Eagles 7-point favorites as they head to take on the Giants.
New York Giants. Hard to believe that they've won 7 games when you watch some of their performances over the past few weeks. Right now, they're number 22 on offense, number 3 in defense. They can't help and they can't defend the run. Those aren't good ingredients to make a recipe that's going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Not Eagles are playing. They're going to be completely outclassed on Sunday. Could they cover the 7? I think they might. So I think I would take the Giants 7 on this one, but it's going to be under 45. All the games that we're going to talk about, there are no weather conditions to be concerned about, not even back east. But just the one thing I'm seeing with the Eagles, it's that great thing where they are, the only thing they seem to be concerned about is one another. Let's move on to the next chapter. The next chapter is the next week's game. And they are just playing so focused, and they're on a mission, and they're in themselves. Those are the ingredients you need to have a good recipe for success.
I agree. And, I may be biased with this statement, but I do see a lot of similarities between this team and the 2017 team that did win the Super Bowl. Not so much maybe on the field, definitely different team, the way they go about their business, but in terms of, like you said, the continuity. There was a saying before every game that Malcolm Jenkins would say is, we all we got, we all we need. And that's kind of how I feel about this team, as they look around and they go, okay, 52 guys in this locker room are the only people that matter. And when you're a Philadelphia sports team, you have to have that, no matter what. Even if you are 11-1, you're only a bad performance away from getting booed off the field in Philly, for better or worse in that situation. But moving on to another interesting matchup in the NFC North to be exact. You have the Minnesota Vikings currently plus 115 at the Detroit Lions minus 135. Detroit is 1.5 point favorites. The over under is 52.5. This game actually opened, the line opened with Minnesota as a 2.5 point favorite. Obviously, some people have seen some things in the last few days, and now Detroit is the favorite, obviously playing a little bit better football than normal. Coach, let's give you the honors to get us started here. Minnesota at Detroit. Detroit favored, kind of surprisingly. What are your thoughts?
Not so much surprisingly based on Jared Goff's recent performances, whether they've been win or loss. He's been performing well. So I think it's not so much, of how well Detroit's been playing, but I think Minnesota's hit like a little bit of a snag, whether it's been an injury bug, whether that's just schematically, teams are able to figure them out a little bit more so than they had earlier in the season, where they came out like filibusters, And I think it's more of a trying time that our local Kevin O'Connell is going to need to start figuring things out to get them back to a position. I'm not saying they're going to lose this game, but the numbers say heavily, hey, these guys are closer right now to this Minnesota team than they were earlier in the season. So I like these numbers. -2.5 favorite for Detroit in Detroit. It is a close game. That's what they're expecting. Okay, cool. 52.5 over under. We've seen both teams put up numbers, so I like the over. Questionable on the -2.5 favorite, but I like the over.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game there in the NFC North. I think it'll be a good one. Definitely one that I think maybe a month ago we didn't expect it to be. Definitely, I don't think we expected the Lions to be favored in this one, but they are. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? NFC North matchup, Minnesota heads to Detroit.
Yeah, the first time they met Minnesota, they took Minnesota to the last round before that one got settled. And right now you've got the Lions rolling on a pretty good streak. The last 5 games, they're 4-1. They're putting up points. They're executing on offense. Raiders have that outside chance to make the playoffs. The Lions have that outside chance to make the playoffs. It's kind of, the same kind of talk. Detroit, I saw that the line actually 1.5 now. Detroit at -1.5, and the over/under is at 51.5. I really like the over in this one. Line on Detroit. I have a feeling they're going to pull the upset at home. They play well in this place, so don't be. Not going to be a surprise if they get the W in this one.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think I'm with you on the over/under. I think we're definitely going to see some points being scored. 2 defenses that, at the very least, leave a lot to be desired. And Detroit can put up some points. They're a fun team to watch. Now, they had some few weeks where they couldn't do anything, but they've seemed to have figured that out. It's going to be an interesting one. I do, at least for the time being, I like the value that Minnesota gives me here. Whether it's the money line or getting some points, because as much as Minnesota's struggled the last few weeks, I do think they have enough bullets to take down a Detroit team that is playing inspired. But I just think eventually, they're going to kind of look at themselves in the mirror and go, oh, wait, you know what? We might not be good enough, but I could be completely wrong. In this one, I've been wrong probably the last month with Detroit in regards to Detroit. So I don't know if today will be the day that I finally get it figured out, but I really do like the over here. I think Justin Jefferson is going to have a huge game. Detroit defense is, like I said, leaves a lot to be desired. Definitely. Look, if this defense was average, I think Detroit would be in the playoffs right now, the way their offense has been clicking. But unfortunately, the defense has let them down for a lot of games this season. And I expect this one to be the same as well. Maybe a get right game for the Vikings and Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson to kind of get things rolling in that direction. But moving on to our third game, we'll be breaking down. It's going to be the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. The Jets are +340. The Bills are -430. On the money line side of things, currently the line is has moved up to Buffalo -10. I believe when I put this together, it was Buffalo -9.5, but Buffalo -10 as of right now. The over under sits at 43.5. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to get us started. A fake New York team versus a real New York team. Jets versus Bills. What you got?
Yeah, the one thing that we've seen is Mike White is probably the answer for the Jets at quarterback. He's doing good. He takes a little bit more risk than the other guys. But is he good enough to beat Buffalo? Not this time, not this year. Buffalo continues to play contender. The defense currently number silver. They're just watch out there and they get the job. I think the guy to watch this time is good. Jordan Poyer, watch him too. He's going to make White a little bit nervous at least 2 times. He loves to just go in from the side, wreak havoc in the backfield. That's what you're going to see. I never like the double-digit spreads. At the same time, a game like this, I can see Buff taking care of business by 2 touchdowns easy. So I guess I would maybe take a half point on this one. Buffalo minus 9.5, and I take the over on this, over 43.5, because I think we'll see points on both sides of the field.
Yeah, I do expect, I did a little research. I do think there will be some rain. You know, December Buffalo rain and not snow is barbecue weather, and I completely understand that, but may affect some passing, but I don't think too much. I would expect the wind probably to be a bigger factor. Don't quite know what that'll be, but I do like the Jets plus 10. I'm worried about a backdoor cover. A lot of times in these games, you talked about, 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Jets, Mike White gets the ball. It's the prevent defense. They're down 14. They go down the field, score with 10 seconds left and hope for a prayer on an onside kick. They lose the game, but all of a sudden that minus 10 or minus 9.5 turned into a 7, and that's not ideal. It's the only thing I would be somewhat worried about here. I do think Buffalo handles their business, probably wins by double digits. But just for the sake of, like I said, my fear of a backdoor cover, I'll take the Jets plus 10.5. I'll buy the extra point just to cover myself on that side. I do like the over here though. Despite the weather, I think you have 2 gunslinging quarterbacks, and I'm not putting them in the same breath. I'm just saying these quarterbacks are going to throw the ball and take chances. Obviously, one will be better than the other. I think we know the answer to that, but the Jets have had a good year and even continue to kind of prove me wrong. I think 3 weeks ago, I said they're at their win total. They're not going to win another game the rest of the year. And then they've gone out and shut me up. So what do I know? But in this case, I do think Buffalo has too much, especially considering, look, the Jets have already beat Buffalo this year. Buffalo does not want to end the year regardless, getting, 0 wins against the Jets. That would be something that would be a long off season for that fan base to have to hear about from their Jet fan friends. So I do think the Buffalo Bills get the job done here, but I don't think they cover. So like I said, give me the Jets plus 10.5, and I will take the over 43.5. Coach, what are your thoughts? Jets head to Buffalo to take on the Bills.
Ever since I saw Mike White in his draft projections coming out of the combine, I believe he's Western Kentucky. I've been extremely impressed. I think he slid 2 rounds too far in that draft. And I was extremely upset that my Saints didn't pick him up. If, as you've seen the last couple of weeks, this guy's throwing 300 plus each game. Last season, when he came in, he started throwing 300 plus those games that he filled in on. Now, the results may have not been what the Jets would have liked, but they're a different team last year to this year. I do like the Jets to cover that 9.5. I don't necessarily think they'll win, but with a guy like with Buffalo's edge rusher out, it's gonna relieve some fear and some pressure from that old line and Mike White to get out there and sling it. Like you said, 2 gunslingers, not of the same breath, but hey, the last couple of weeks he's proved he could throw the rock or the pill or whatever the football term is in regards to a ball, but he could sling it. And we from time to time we talk about this is a team Super Bowl. this may be that Jets team Super Bowl if they want to stay alive, right?
Yeah.
You know, this could be that one that Salah's paid most attention to, you know, and then they got Miami coming up. So, it's an interdivision rival. It's gonna be a tighter game than I think that spread says, and you know how much I like Josh Allen, so I'm expecting a close game and above that 43.5, like exciting. I really am, regardless of the temperatures.
Yeah. It'll be a good one out there in Buffalo this weekend coming up. Very interesting to see how that one goes, and very important for both of those teams, whether it's playoff positioning or just playoff survival, like you alluded to. Moving on to another really interesting matchup in the AFC West. We have the Kansas City Chiefs, currently minus 430 on the money line side of things. They will head to Mile High, take on the Denver Broncos, who are plus 340 on the money line. Currently, the spread sits at Kansas City, 9.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 43.5. We got the AFC West up here. There's no place we go other than Raider Jim. What are you thinking, Raider Jim? Big inner rivalry. Kansas City heads to Denver as 9.5-point favorites.
Yeah. I said it last week, at the beginning of this, before everything got started in week one, the talk was AFC West is probably going to be the toughest division in the NFL. That has not played out at all. Kansas City is still the cream of the crop in the AFC West, and pretty much the cream of the crop in the NFL right now. Denver did not, the Russell Wilson experiment just isn't playing out the way that the Denver fan base and the Denver management hoped it would. And it just continues to get worse, it seems. If not for their defense, who knows where they'd be right now, because they're in this terrible state of disrepair almost, it seems. So I think, and what we're going to see this week, Kansas City's coming off of the last week game against Cincinnati. They want to come back and make a statement. I think they will make a statement. They're certainly not going to be bothered by cold weather. Cover the 9.5, probably. I think they're going to get a 2-touchdown win against Denver. You're going to see a strong Kansas City defense this week. And then on the game ball side of things, 32 yards. That's what Travis Kelce needs to become one of the first tight ends, if not the first tight end, to get 1,000 yards in the first 7 seasons of his career. And like I say, every time I see him and I yell out loud, I hate that guy, it's just because he's so good and he is so damaging against the Raiders and anybody he plays. But I have nothing but respect for the way that guy plays football.
Yeah, as Reggie Jackson said, they don't boo nobodies. And that is the case. If you're getting booed on the road, you're doing something right, unless you're Deshaun Watson. But anyways, let's go to you, Coach Lupian. What are your thoughts? Kansas City heads to Denver as 9.5-point favorites.
It'd be very easy for me to say, yeah, what he said, because there's nothing more you could really say to I don't even have the words, but in regards to Travis Kelce, what a talent, what a player. Congrats to him. 34 yards, great. And what a debacle it's been for Denver. I'm not a Denver guy, but I was excited to say, hey, you know what? As much as it's good for Denver, when there's a good Denver team, it's good for the NFL. And this has just been bad. It's just been bad. And, I guess Coach Carroll was right up in Seattle. It was more Russ, or what Russ wasn't doing versus, him being too old to coach these guys. It's mind-boggling. It's every adjective you could think of, disappointing. And I really do want KC to take it by 9.5. And that seems like a low 43.5. They could put 43.5 up on their own, or 43 on their own. So I like KC with it.
Yeah, look, the Broncos, they're an unmitigated disaster. Let's just call it like it is. This is a team that's at least with the Lions before this streak, they were at least fun to watch. The Broncos, and I think a lot of it seems like they've been in prime time, and every time they've been in prime time, it's just go to sleep. Like I guarantee you can find something better to do in those 3 hours. And we're in another situation now. They're not prime time or anything like that, but Kansas City, I think, is coming in, and they're looking around, and this defense is licking their chops. I had a buddy of mine who's a Seahawks fan, and I asked him, I was like, you lost Russ, blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, I feel, I'm bummed. I love Russ, blah, blah, blah. And he just looked at me and he goes, but if Russell Wilson struggles in Denver, it's not going to be like when he struggled in Seattle. And I didn't quite understand it, but now I do, because look, obviously he has years of look what I did with this team, and I won you a Super Bowl, blah, 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 blah. He hasn't had that with Denver. They've only had 12, 13 games with this guy. And believe me, that taste is not good in those fans' mouths. So I do think Russell Wilson having to kind of get away from that, legend status, going somewhere else. It's kind of careful what you wish for. And I think everybody on the Denver and Wilson side of things is frustrated. This is a team that's only scored 20 or more points twice this entire year. And let's be honest, if they're going to cover this, they're going to need to go north of 20. So as I'll buy a half a point, give me KC minus 9.5, just to make sure I don't get a backdoor cover. But look, this Denver's offense is straight up offensive. I am going to take the under in this one. Coach, you said it. I mean, you can tell me right now that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to score 31 points, and I'm still probably going to stick with the under, because this Broncos offense it's terrible. Look, I try and be somewhat nice and don't try and kill or bury certain teams or players, but it's getting to a point now. It's no longer a fluke. This is what the Broncos are. And I think we know what the Chiefs are, despite what we saw last week. I think the Chiefs go in and handle business in this situation. So moving on to another very interesting matchup. This one coming in the NFC, not a divisional matchup, but possibly a playoff matchup we could see down the road. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 155 at the San Francisco 49ers, who are minus 185 on the money line side of things. Currently, the Niners are 3.5 point favorites. The over-under here is only 37.5. We got an AFC or an NFC South team going here. So let's send it over to you, Coach. What are your thoughts? You got Tampa Bay heading cross country to face the Jimmy G lists. I don't know if I just said that correctly, but no Jimmy G for the Niners. What are your thoughts? Bucks, Niners.
Jimmy G list sounds about right. I mean, there's plenty of times throughout my life where I've created words on the spot. I think I've done it on a couple of our shows. But what's that? The spread was minus 3.5 in San Fran. Yes. They're putting a lot on Nick Bosa and that defense to shut down this Tampa Bay attack. Has Brady been Brady-like? No way. I mean, you could just see it against my Saints, who's a top, 10 defense in this league, but he's missing passes he's missed plenty of those passes against my Saints, but he's been missing those passes throughout this entirety of the season. So he's not as sharp as in seasons past. Minus 3.5, that's a lot to put on Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. 37.5. If it's a defensive struggle like Monday Night Football, and let's take Monday Night Football into account, that's one less day of preparation. I do like 37.5 thinking of that. And I do like 37.5 looking at what that Tampa Bay defense did, along with what defense San Francisco has. I mean, they're dynamic and they do a lot of really good things. Minus 3.5, I don't like. Minus 3, yeah, I like. Minus 3.5 now. 37.5 now. So, like the under on it.
Gotcha. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? You got Tom Brady heading to face his old nemesis, not really, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, let's not get too excited about Tom Brady, everybody. I mean, he is as great as get, absolutely. But the other thing I noticed, not only is he missing passes that coach pointed out, now you're starting to see the Phillip Rivers reactions on the sidelines, on the field. He's starting to do what he has never really done before, which is he's showing emotion, which to me says that either his psyche is lessened or people are starting to get into his psyche. But I mean, it was a mixed bag the other night. Was it he did that well, or did the New Orleans defense let them down, or a combination of everything? It seemed like it was that old adage, better lucky than good. That's not going to happen against the San Francisco defense. San Francisco defense is the best defense in the land. And I think they are going to rattle this guy. They're going to come at him. It's going to be pressure, pressure, pressure. And as one reporter wrote, Brock Purdy is going to go as far as the San Francisco defense will cover him. And I think he's going to get covered. And his offensive line knows what they need to do. There's going to be a lot of execution in the trenches. I think they definitely cover the 3.5. But I think it's good. I would buy my half point and go under 38 on this one. But I think they cover.
Yeah, this is, obviously I do feel bad for Jimmy G. You don't want to see anyone get hurt, especially kind of, I don't want to say the comeback he's had, but, the trajectory he was on, at least with everything that happened last offseason. But you brought up, for me, I think obviously not only the most important part of this game, but I think the most important unit in the entire NFL right now is now the San Francisco 49ers. Because as good as they have been for the first 13 weeks of the season, they're going to have to be better. And it's just not their fault. It's just because, look, Brock Purdy, best of luck to him. As you said, Mr. Irrelevant, final pick of the draft. It's his rookie year. Excuse me. It's going to be interesting how the Niners kind of handle this. They are going to go to the playoffs with him, but as an Eagle fan, I don't ever want to see anyone get hurt, but I mean, that bumped our chances of getting out of the NFC, heavily. So that's a positive for the Eagles. But you don't like to see it. In terms of this game, I'd love to sit here and say, Brock Purdy's going to put the final nail in Brady's coffin, and that defense is going to finally expose Brady, and we won't be out to dealing with him anymore. But I just feel like this is a game that kind of springboards Brady and the Buccaneers back into kind of playoff contention, and a team that you got to kind of pay attention to. I just feel like the defense for the Niners is going to feel like they have to be perfect. Well, that's a lot of pressure on a very good unit, yes, but they know in the back of their mind that they have to keep these teams under 17 points if they want to win these games, and they have the ability to do that. I understand, but I just think Brady and company are going to be just a little too much. I actually like the Buccaneers to win this game. I see a lot of value at plus 155. However, the only way that happens is if we go over 37.5. So I'm going to take the over just because I think Tampa wins this game. And like I said, there's no way they win this game if the final score is 14-10. So I need this number to go over the 37.5. Probably need to go higher than that, but at least over that 37.5 for Tampa Bay to get the win, at least in my mind. So going to be very interesting to see how that goes. Brock Purdy, a lot of pressure, a lot of eyes on him. Tough first start for your career to face the greatest quarterback of all time, but he'll be ready to roll. And I know Kyle Shanahan, he'll have him prepared to the best of his abilities. So moving on to Sunday night football, we got the Miami Dolphins at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Dolphins are minus 170 on the money line side of things. Chargers are plus 145. Looking at the spread, you have the Dolphins -3. The over under here is 52.5. We got an AFC West team, so you know where we're starting. Raider Jim, the floor is yours, sir. Hope you there, Raider Jim. Might have lost Raider Jim, unfortunately. Let's go to you, Coach. Chargers hosting the Dolphins.
Yeah, I really don't know anything about either of these two teams, to be honest with you. I don't watch the Chargers. I kind of got disinterested in what Miami was doing when Tua got hurt, but it seems that they've rebounded quite well and have positioned themselves in a playoff hunt. Let me see here. What are our numbers here? Miami -3.
-3.
Yeah, actually, I do like Miami -3. I think this is a Charger team that a guy like Tyreek Hill knows very well, knows how to dissect that secondary, may have a big game. And then, is it Jalen Waddle?
Yep.
Jalen Waddle is a beast, so as long as Tua could stay upright, I do like Miami. I think that's a low -3. Even when, the Chargers were in San Diego, Miami gave these guys fits. It's just kind of one of them things. Coming east to west, there's no jet lag issues like there are going west to east. However, I do like the under 52.5.
Gotcha. Just throwing it out there. Miami actually didn't fly back this past weekend. They stayed in California.
Even better.
Yeah, exactly. And they were in San Francisco last week, so there was really no point in going back. Enjoy the Southern California sunshine, and not that Miami's missing out on that. But
yeah, absolutely. They might be a little bit like us, where this is chill. It's too cold for them.
Definitely. All right. Let's see. Raider Jim, are you up? Are you there?
Back. Yeah. AFC West, what do you say? Another one of those deals. The LA Chargers, who were supposed to be, challenging the Chiefs, better than the Raiders, and they were going to be the ones that were to make the playoff run, and they're the 3-point underdog at home. We'll say on their behalf, this is one beat-up football. Now, from the offensive line to the defensive side of the ball, they don't have the Bosa brother back there. The good Bosa brother in San Francisco, by the way, I have a little trivia fact right there for him. I think he needs one more sack to have 4 sacks in 2 of his first 4 seasons. So congrats to him. But back to Miami and the Chargers, the Raiders did a great job hitting multiple targets passing game, and they have the targets, and Carr had a pretty decent game. Have the same kind of success with the passing game, plus Tagovailoa can run if he wants to, and that's going to cause problems for the Chargers. Miami to cover at -3, no problem. I think it's going to go under 52 in this one.
Yeah, the Chargers obviously beaten up, but they're so hard to figure out, because we've seen this team go toe-to-toe with the 49ers. We've seen this team go toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs and other really good teams. And then they've also been dominated by teams like Jacksonville and Vegas. No offense to Raider Jim, but they seem to be so up and down. It's very frustrating as not a fan of this team. I can only imagine if you were a fan of this team. And they continue, like I said, to match the talent levels, or at least the play of their opponents. However, I do think we've hit a fork in the road for the Chargers. This is now time that if they want to make the playoffs, I don't want to say they have to win out, but they definitely have to win this game. And I think for Brandon Staley, he's now officially coaching for his job. Papa Peyton is looking over his shoulder. I know a lot of Charger fans would love to get Sean Payton to LA. Brandon Staley.
Hold your mouth.
Hey, I'm just reporting the news, sir. I'm just reporting the news.
Watch it.
But Brandon Staley, regardless of that person's interest or not, he's got to be a playoff or bust coach this year. I feel like, or at the very least, a strong finish. So I think the desperation does get the job done for the Chargers. It just seems like a game that the Chargers would win. We sit there and we look and we go, there's no way. They got dominated last week, and they come out and just get the job done. I don't know why, but that's just the feeling I have. I do like the over here. I think we're going to see a shootout, 52.5. Another little wild card. I don't know if it'll matter too much. I don't even know if it'll matter at all, but something to keep in mind. Bradley Chubb spent his entire career in Denver, very familiar with how the Chargers run offenses and things like that. So maybe a little bit more knowledge than you would normally see, in a game that, the Dolphins and Chargers don't match up a ton, or at least not yearly, at least. But Bradley Chubb can kind of bring, some scouting reports and things that he's, some notes, and he was on this Broncos team earlier this year too. So it's not like they've changed up everything in the offseason. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. But next up, we have the New England Patriots at the Arizona Cardinals. This is Monday Night Football. You got the Patriots minus 130 on the money line, plus 110 for Arizona. New England is 1.5 point favorites. The over-under sits at 44.5. I'll get this one started. I don't have a whole lot going here because I'm just looking over the clock, and we got 20 minutes until Raider Jim's team's going to get rolling. So I want to finish this up as soon as possible so we can enjoy that. In this situation, I just think New England puts enough together. Baby Belichick, Steve Belichick, I think he's going to kind of salivate watching Kyler Murray and the mistakes he makes. I think they take advantage of that. I like the Patriots to cover this. However, in terms of the over-under, I do like the under. Look, Matt Patricia was fired from the Lions a few years ago, and I was very sad because I made a lot of money off of Matt Patricia when he was the head coach, betting against him. Well, I found a new way to do this. Bet the unders on Matt Patricia offenses. I think we're going to cash that check. Even Mac Jones, who is very, seems like a conservative play caller if he was put in charge. He was getting frustrated with Matt Patricia's conservative play call. So give me the under in this one. New England minus 1.5, under 44.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? New England at Arizona, Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I like New England. One, but same thing, they'll cover the spread. I think it's going to be real comments are that Kyler Murray, boy, isn't he turning out to be the poster boy for mediocrity? And because there was a lot of promise there at the outset. Everybody had great expectations. It's just not panning out, and maybe a different jersey, who knows? But it's almost looks like it could be going the way of the Baker experiment. So we'll see what happens with Kyler Murray in the future. And you hit the nail on the head. I was going to say, you must be sitting back on Sunday, lacing your fingers, watching Belichick have to deal with Matt Patricia, your buddy, and the great offensive juggernaut that he's put together for old coach. Wow. Like I said, I referred to him as the brain from Pinky Over the World. He must at halftime and after games. He must locker room now and shake his head and say, man, I knew I was going to stick around 1 year too many. So happens. But in this one, again, who's going to win? Going to win on the road in the nice toasty dome where the weather elements aren't going to be a problem, but it's under. It's not going to be a shootout.
Yeah. Coach, what are your thoughts? New England at Arizona for Monday Night Football.
Here are my thoughts. Brady's final season. Peyton's coming back next year to join Brady in New England.
Whoa.
As Brady is the OC, Sean's the HC. There is no SoCal shining for Sean. It's either he's teaming up with Brady, or he's going to Dallas, where they worship Sean like they worship Norv Turner. And not many other places worship Norv Turner. But the big tuna has a lot of pull in Sean's mind. And if it's not New England, it's Dallas, because Mike McCarthy is exit stage left. In regards to this game, I mean, there's nothing more I could say. As much of a disappointment as Kyler Murray has been, um, you know, this is a kid who likes video games. This is a kid that signed a Major League Baseball contract out of high school and chose football. I didn't say he just bailed on the A's, but he chose football. Um, didn't and no, not didn't, but hasn't chosen football as his true profession, I think, quite yet. Doesn't do what he has to in the meeting rooms, doesn't do what he has to in the playbook, doesn't do what he has to in the video room. I like New England to cover the 1.5. And I think Belichick is gonna do something to contain this kid, and he doesn't run like he used to. I think that body's starting to break down, and he's becoming irrelevant.
Yeah, I think I poked the bear there with Coach with the Sean Payton in SoCal. That was maybe over the line, because dropping the Sean Payton in New England with Brady back, whoo, that's a heck of a kickback right there.
Like that
would be
one, right?
brilliant. Yeah, that
Like
was
that one.
awesome. I tell you what, though, if it happens, wow. I mean, you were right about Josh Allen, so I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just that's a big limb you're going out on, and I like it.
I think Robert Kraft likes Brady more than he likes Belichick.
Oh, 100. Yeah.
So you could see it happening.
Yeah. The only thing I will say, and I've been somebody that's talked a lot of smack on Kyler Murray and made jokes about his video game playing and things like that. I saw someone, and I don't remember who the player was, but he was on a podcast with some retired players, and they brought up the video game thing and the Twitch streaming. And the player, like I said, I forget who it was, but he brought up a fantastic point. He said, look, if the worst thing that your player is doing is playing too many video games, isn't great, don't get me wrong, but you're in the house, you're safe, you're not out like Deshaun Watson or some of these others and putting yourself in a position to get in trouble with the law, or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Obviously, Kyler Murray needs to probably find a middle ground when it comes to that with video games, things like that. But I do just want to say, mainly because I feel like I've maybe pushed the narrative as well, that, these players who focus on video games or like video games are less than or anything like that. It's not what I'm thinking at all. I just believe that, when a team has to write in a contract about limiting video game time, that's when it becomes a problem. So I just wanted to state that before we got rolling onto the next one. And the next one is a doozy, folks. We have probably the mismatch of the year with the Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. You have the Texans plus 830 and the Dallas Cowboys minus 1400. The spread sits at Dallas 16.5. The over-under sits at 45.5. This is an NFC East division, so I will get this one started. Huge spread, but obviously you can't be surprised. Personally, I am never laying down 17 points on an NFL game. So I'll buy a half a point and take Houston plus 17. I talked earlier in the game, or earlier in the episode, about being afraid of a backdoor cover. I think we could see something here. I think the Texans are going back to Davis Mills, so maybe there's a little bit of a spark there. It won't be enough to win the game. It probably won't even be enough to keep this close to single digits. But in order for Dallas to really cover 16.5, they're probably going to need to be up by 20 points at half, because a lot of teams in the NFL, once they get up by 14, 17 points, let's call off the dogs a bit. Let's start looking towards next week. That's what I'm afraid of, is backdoor cover. I will say Dallas's defense is probably going to keep this under. However, once again, I'm afraid of that backdoor cover, that garbage time, but I do like the under 45.5. I just don't know how Houston's going to score too many points against, one of the more electrifying defenses in all of football, as we kind of get ready for that big Christmas Eve matchup between the Cowboys and the Eagles. That's probably going to determine the number one overall seed in the NFC. But let's go to you, Raider Jim. We have the Texans at the Cowboys in the mismatch of the season. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I just checked that Vegas and the spread has actually moved to Dallas minus 17.5. So there's a slight movement on that. The over-under is still at 44.5. And I just can't play the spread like that. So I would only play the over-under in this one. I would even buy a point and I'll go under 45.5. I just don't see how Houston's going to have any kind of offensive production. Dallas will. I just don't know how much they really want to run it up. I don't think they're going to need to. I think they're just going to go out there, play, get into the end zone when they can, stop Houston every chance they get. But this is lopsided.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one to watch, to be a part of. Thoughts and prayers out there to Houston and all them, but it's going to be a difficult one for the Texans, I think, guaranteed. But Coach, what are your thoughts? Dallas minus 17.5, and the over under sits at 45.5.
You know, I don't know. There really isn't much to say in this game. It's you know, if it was the Oilers, because of the Houston Dallas, you know, football is blood in Texas. Maybe there's some professional pride going on. But with this game, yeah, just what's Dallas's record right now? You're an NFC East guy. They're in your division.
8-3, I believe. 9-3 final answer.
Yeah, they need to just stay the course and not take anything lightly to go and continue their playoff push. So yeah, too bad. I have nothing to say about that. Minus 1,400. Jeez.
These are college numbers. I mean, this is I think
this is Alabama versus Troy.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the Purdue Michigan game, who was a big mismatch as it was, I believe this had a lower spread than that. So it's going to be an interesting one. I'm not going to watch it. I don't think any of us are going to watch it, but it's only interesting to see how it's kind of like the train wreck, right? You want to see how bad it gets, as terrible as that sounds. But second to last game, we have the Cleveland Browns plus 205 at the resurgent Cincinnati Bengals minus 250. The Bengals are minus 6.5 on the spread. The over-under sits at 47.5. I'll drop my pick in real quick. I just think Cincinnati is starting to figure it out. A lot of momentum, beating Mahomes and the Chiefs last week. And for better or worse, unfortunately, they look at themselves and go, we might be the best team in this division now with the Lamar Jackson injury. Once again, I don't want to see anyone get hurt, but facts are facts. I'll take Cincinnati minus 6.5. I do like the over 47.5. I do think we see some points being scored. Deshaun Watson really did struggle last week, which I enjoyed. But at the same time, I do expect him to come back. As much as I don't like him as a human being, he has been a successful football player, and we're talking about football here. So I do like the over 47.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Cleveland heads to Cincinnati in an old school NFC or AFC Central matchup.
Yeah, best thing Cleveland got going for them. Their defense isn't half bad, and they've got probably one of my favorite guys to watch run the ball right now next to Josh Jacobs, and that's Chubb. And the guy's got, I think he's just under 1,200 yards right now, or just over 1,100 yards. He'll keep him in the game. He'll keep it competitive. Does Cincinnati cover 5.5? Yes, they do. So I'll take Cincinnati by a touchdown, minus 5.5, and I think it will go over 46.5.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one there in the NFC or AFC North. I don't know why I keep trying to say the NFC, but Coach, what are your thoughts? Cleveland heads to Cincy.
Hey, Burrow with the Louisiana spelling, AUX, has been playing the last couple of weeks. So I like those numbers for Cincinnati, and that it's home. So the Saints of the North are there to cover that game. But like Raider Jim alluded to, I do like watching Chubb run that ball the way he does. So I hope this Deshaun Watson thing isn't so much of a distraction for the team as much for him. But he's got 2 seasons of rust that he's really got to work out. And you know, it's just not enough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. The AFC North other matchup, we have the final game. We'll be talking about the Baltimore Ravens plus 125 at the Pittsburgh Steelers minus 145. The Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 36.5. Once again, we will not see Lamar Jackson. I believe they haven't given a timetable, but I believe it's a PCL sprain, which is usually between 1 and 3 weeks. With Lamar and the way he runs and the way he plays, I would think it's closer to the 3-week side of things. Tyler Huntley will be starting for them. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Baltimore underdogs as they head to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I don't see why not. That injury, I'm sorry, you cut out on my side, so I didn't get to hear the PCL sprain. That is usually a 1 to 3 week deal. So I think he's going to be out definitely this game and possibly not back until after the holidays, which would be terrible for Baltimore. And they've been kind of struggling they're not dominating, they're winning, they're doing enough to get the victories, but it's not like they're blowing people out of the water. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, one thing they have going for them is they have racked up, I believe it's 6 or 7 100-yard rushing games, something they hadn't done since like 2015, 2016. So if they've got that back in order and they're controlling the ball, this is going to go under 37 points, and I'll take Pittsburgh money line.
Yeah, it's unfortunate there for Lamar Jackson there in Baltimore. Coach, what are your thoughts? Baltimore heads to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't know what Pittsburgh's been doing, but listening to Raider Jim, I like what he says.
Yeah, it's a lot of things to happen. Obviously, the Lamar Jackson injury is unfortunate, and it makes the Ravens worse. Let's just be honest. With all due respect, Tyler Huntley. But the one thing I think that's key is they don't change their offense. This is going to be the same offense. Now, once again, Tyler Huntley is not nearly as explosive, fast, things like that. But this is a guy, it's not like you're going from a Lamar Jackson to a prototypical pocket passer. Tyler Huntley can move. He can run the read option. He can run the RPOs that are needed. But Pittsburgh has been much improved. I think Kenny Pickett has improved week in and week out, and that's got to be a positive if you're a Steeler fan, if you're Mike Tomlin. Is he where he needs to be? Probably not. But from what we saw earlier, I mean, I believe he was benched earlier in the year, and then he came back. So I like what I've seen out of Pittsburgh, and I think they get the job done as well. I like the number where it's at, -2.5. Don't get me above. I think it's a field goal game. In terms of the 36.5, I think both these teams are perfectly fine being under. I think both of these teams kind of want to see an old school Troy Polamalu / Ed Reed type defensive game to where you're going to see a lot of heavy hits, a lot of attrition by the end of it. I like the under in this one. I see it 20-14, 20-17 in that area. In that situation, maybe not 2017 because that would get us over, but in that type of area, 17-14 type game. But that is all we have for you today. Let's give our final thoughts as always. Coach, we'll head to you first. Final thoughts for week 14 of the NFL Weekly.
Yeah, I was excited to be back. I apologize to all of y'all. I just didn't have all the information. I don't keep up on many teams throughout the league. Just don't have a lot of information, and it probably sounded like a lot of regurgitation to what my colleagues said, because they're never wrong. They give you guys a lot of great information in regards to their picks, and they give you a lot of information in regards to each team. So I thank them for that, and they carry me throughout. And I look forward to this week, maybe getting a chance to sit down and watch more football, even though my guys are on a bye. So
yeah. Red Zone will be waiting for you, hopefully. And I'll tell you this, as we've said numerous times, we're a team and we are here to pick up our brothers and sister. Can't forget about Brianna there doing the change up and all that stuff. So it's what we're all about. Always love your input. And at the very least, if the Patriots get Brady and Sean Payton back, you will have had the soundbite of the podcast. So you have the inside track on that. But Raider Jim, final thoughts as you get ready to watch your Raiders beat up on the LA Rams.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get a late start on that one. I'm going to have to go set the hard drive to get recording because I think I have to have a long heart-to-heart with Cox Cable before the end of the night here. With all the internet interruptions and things like that. Thank you for putting up with the technical difficulties on my end. But what a great week. And Coach, it ain't a show unless you're with us. So we really appreciate every time you can join us.
Amen.
Wow. Amen. You're such the charmer. Always the charmer.
Unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of us can relate, especially these days in the last 3 years of Zoom meetings and things like that. Unfortunately, technology isn't always up to par, but we keep fighting through. Appreciate you, Raider Jim, kind of getting through all that. And I'm sure it was probably a little tough there on that side. And I'm not going to filibuster or anything like that. But I do, in all seriousness, want to just say one thing. The holidays are approaching. First and foremost, be responsible. Do not drink and do not drive. Do not ruin someone's holiday. Do not ruin your family's holiday because you were stupid and couldn't afford a cab or couldn't afford an Uber to get home, or you were just irresponsible. Let's be honest. And secondly, take a moment to be with family, to take some time. Maybe there's somebody that you haven't talked to in a little while and you don't even really remember why you were mad at them. Reach out. You'll regret it one day, unfortunately. And as I say, that doesn't really affect me in terms of what I was talking about, but tomorrow is the 3-year anniversary of my father's passing, and December is always tough. It's kind of a reminder of what isn't there. So I always try and remind people, whatever that person said or whatever that person did, give them a call. Maybe they've changed. If they're still doing the same things, you said you could try, or you could have said you tried to get back into it, but I think more than likely, you're going to be somewhat pleasantly surprised on what you'll find. So just be there, be safe, and have a happy holiday. We will be back with you next week, of course, to break down all of the action from week 14 and preview week 15 as well as we get closer to Super Bowl Sunday in February. But thank you all, as always, for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care.